Hello everyone, today I want to look at whether the first original Assassin's Creed game is as good as we remember. I do remember the first time I saw the game. I was about 10 years old and the game had just come out, and in all honesty I was only interested in it because the guy in the cover was wearing a hood and he looked cool. Yeah, the standards were kinda low when I was a kid, but nevertheless one of my older friends was able to get the game totally legitimately for me, and I had my chance to play it. Keep in mind, when I was 10, I didn't speak even fluent English, so I don't remember having any thoughts on the plot. I honestly just wanted to play the game the same way I did GTA San Andreas, which was to go around and kill some dudes. Now, before I jump right into it, a little brief history lesson on AC1. Assassin's Creed first came out in 2007, initially meant to be a follow-up from Prince of Persia: Sands of Time. As the team started to work on the new title, initially it was meant to be starting development in 2004 and as a PlayStation 2 title. But as more information on the next generation consoles came out, they started to expand the game into a more openish world acrobatic gameplay. A lot of cool things came out of this evolution to the new consoles, one of them being the fact that where previously they were only able to render 8 characters on screen at once, now you have the ability to render crowds up to 120 characters, which is more than 10 times what they were able to do before. The idea of Assassins came from one of the game director's university books on secret societies. It mentioned the actual order of the assassins that was based in Masyaf close to 1,000 years ago. Initially the game was supposed to be named Prince of Persia Assassins, but obviously at some point this became an entirely new IP, and boy has Ubisoft milked it since then. But never mind that, let's get right into it. Was Assassin's Creed 1 as good as we remember? When we first begin the game, we seem to be in some sort of unstable virtual location. Everything around us flashes, there's strange glyphs floating around, and all around us are people whose faces are completely gone. As this is all happening, we can hear voices from outside this virtual memory place. As everything ends in a flash, we then come to our senses. A lot more context is provided then. We've been kidnapped and are being kept in what seems to be a laboratory. We're accompanied by a scientist, Warren, and his assistant, Lucy. Warren explains that the reason why we have been kidnapped is because we hold precious memories bound to our DNA and because we're previous assassins, not so much anything to do with Desmond's current occupation, which is being a bartender. Our ancestors knew secrets, or better yet, lived through secrets the company Abstergo needed to uncover, and that's why we're relevant. They were going to obtain these memories with or without our cooperation, the remaining alternative being induced into a coma and using us in that manner. But for efficiency, they want us to believe that Desmond has a choice. The tutorial, although quite standard in the way that it's structured, is tied with the narrative quite nicely. In order for us to relive our ancestors' memories, we need to use the Animus, which is a machine that accesses our DNA database to do this. As it is too much of a stress on our bodies to go straight to the memory that Abstergo needs, we need to learn our ancestors' way of life leading up to the significant event they were trying to get access to. That's where the tutorial comes in. We get shown a number of different scenarios, the meaning of the UI, how to kill, how to evade guards, how to move through a crowd. You get the idea. It's interesting because they use the Animus as the vehicle as to why we need to learn the meaning of the UI and the controls, not like some video games where the fourth wall gets broken by an NPC having dialogues like, "Press the X key to jump." After this, we finally begin the Altair story. As soon as we begin Altair's memories, we see him kill an old man. Quite promptly, one of his 2 brothers tells him off for taking the life of an innocent, which is against the first tenet of the Assassin's Creed. Altair is arrogant, making it out as if he knows best, which makes his brethren all the more frustrated at him. We move further down the apparent excavation wherein and find the Creed's antagonist, Robert of Sablé. Altair is tempted to kill him while we have him, although our mission is to retrieve an artifact. There, Altair breaks the second tenet. He does not stay in the shadows, revealing himself to the enemy. This leads us to be overpowered by the enemy and our 2 brothers to be stuck in the same room with the Templars. We make our way out and fast forward to arriving at our Creed's castle. Altair reports to the leader of the Creed, Al-Mualim, saying that the mission was a failure and that we were unable to retrieve the artifact. We're interrupted by one of the assassins we left behind. He made it out alive, although quite bloody. He tells everything to the leader, how arrogant Altair was and the grave manner in which he broke all of the tenets in one single mission, single-handedly causing the mission failure. This assassin that escaped was followed by Robert, so the village we reside in is under attack. Al-Mualim orders everyone to fight back, and here we get a taste of our first combat. It's actually not bad, pretty easy actually, as you can keep countering every enemy attack as long as you wait for them to engage first. We make it back and are able to sneak behind our enemies as they lay siege to our castle and use a trap to kill the majority of them. we're now safe. We then resume our conversation with Al-Mualim. He's not only disappointed in Altair, but he sees him as a traitor, promptly stabbing him in the abdomen as he says it. As soon as that happens, we go back to being Desmond once again. It seems that it takes some time for our bodies to get used to the animus, so Lucy urges Warren to pause the experiment for now so that we may rest. Before we go to our room, we can have an optional dialogue with Lucy. We find out that Desmond was part of a little community of around 30 people who lived in a place called The Farm. He was raised there by his parents, but he never left until he decided to run away when he was 16. He wanted to see the rest of the world as he was aware of it, but was never able to leave. We then proceed to rest until we go back in the animus the next day. Altair made it alive from being stabbed by Al-Mualim. He's been stripped from all ranks and weapons as he must regain his right to bear these by proving himself once more to the Brotherhood. This redemption is to begin by uncovering a traitor infiltrated in the Brotherhood who works for our enemies. This section is essentially a method for us to learn how to both pickpocket and eavesdrop by blending into the crowd. Once we uncover the traitor, we bring him to the leader of the Creed. He gets executed and we take one small step forward in our redemption arc. We now regain access to a sword and our hidden blade. From this point on, and most of the game is Altair's task of assassinating 9 Templar targets, regaining his ranks and skills along the way, while traveling between the cities of Damascus, Acre, and Jerusalem. From this point on, the training wheels are off. You exit the town we're in and get to use a horse for traveling. The controls of the horse are fine, however it does feel dated as it is incredibly stiff, although you're able to wield your weapon while you're on the horse, making it easy to kill enemies, and you can also blend in while on it as well, meaning that the mechanics you learn during the normal gameplay translate into using horses as a vehicle, which is quite a smart move. While you're traveling in between cities, you have a big open area which is just called the Kingdom. It is not exactly open world since every so often you go through an area which causes a loading screen. A better way to describe it is probably like the latest Sonic Frontiers in how they describe it as a open zone area. It's large, expensive, but it is not completely free. In the Kingdom, you can climb viewpoints just like the main cities which reveal more of the map, and you can also collect the collectible flags which change slightly depending which city you are in. We arrive in Damascus and we can finally understand the scope of how big this game can be. I thought I remembered the game for having several big cities as a whole, but now I understand that they're split into several districts within each city, becoming a pleasant surprise. Some of the districts are restricted for the time being depending on the memory you're playing. This is an interesting gameplay mechanic to keep the player bound to one task at a time, although it uses the plot aspect of synchronizing our assassin's memories by laying them in order. If it was any other way, I probably wouldn't like this, but it was done in a very smart way and I feel like it's kind of acceptable. We can now put some of our skills to practice. First, by slipping into the city by blending in with scholars, and then by learning more about our first target. We visit the Assassin's Bureau, which exists in every city, to confirm our mission. As soon as that is done, we can move on to the assassination. We can learn about our target in a variety of ways, but mostly through exploring and completing little side missions around the area where the assassination will take place. Additionally to that, there's activities you can do around the districts you visit, like rescuing civilians from guards, which allows other civilians to aid you when being pursued or attacked. There's a lot of these which quickly become repetitive to the point where some of the voice lines recorded are reused many times. But moving on, who's our first target? A man named Tamir. He's a merchant who's known for selling armor and weapons, directly profiting from all unrest in the area. We're to kill him during a business meeting as he is bound to be too focused on his work. He is to be found in a town square. When we reach him, he's having an argument with a supplier who is tasked to fulfill the orders of weapons for him, so that they are sold to the client as per the agreement. But the order is far too large for the supplier to fulfill in such short notice, and as he complains about this, Tamir has an outburst of anger and repeatedly stabs his business associate. This is where we're to kill him. Weirdly, on my first attempt, as soon as the cutscene stops playing, the guards and Tamir go after me and I get overwhelmed and killed. When I get to replay this section, I'm able to actually blend my way close to Tamir and assassinate him. As he draws his final breath, he speaks very vaguely on how he's a very small piece of a much larger plan, warning us that his death will anger the rest of the people involved in this little group. We go back to the Assassin's Bureau and confirm that the mission was successful. We then exit the Animus and go back to being Desmond. The Desmond section is short, it's only used as another excuse for rest and for dialogue between the scientist and ourselves, although we don't really learn anything very conclusive. As we jump back into Altair's timeline, we learn of his promotion, which grants us access to a short blade and grants us the skill to counterattack. On the counterattack skill, it greatly trivializes any sort of combat. You can legitimately wait for any enemy to attack you, time your counter just about right, one of the 4 counter animations plays, and they're as good as dead. This is just one of the aspects of this game that showcases its age, the repeated animations and the exploitable combat mechanics. A plausible argument for the counterattack being so effective is that Altair is an assassin trained in the art of killing efficiently, which works if this was a movie, but it's a game, which makes the combat feel a lot more dull in comparison. Story-wise, we now have 2 options. We either go to Jerusalem or Acre. It's our choice. In this case, I went to Acre, but my mistake, because I thought I was going to Jerusalem. Again, we travel by horse, and as we reach Acre, we enter the city the same way as we did Damascus. We rescue a citizen outside the city and blend in with scholars to make our way in. Yes, this game can get repetitive. We make it to the bureau, and we find out that we're to assassinate a man called Garnier, just like the shampoo brand. What a legacy. When we find out more information about this target, we get informed that he is a doctor at the local hospital, but he is not known for saving his patients. He has a reputation of experimenting and torturing them. We then make our way to the target. When we arrive to the hospital, a frantic man runs out into the main courtyard trying to escape from the building. He gets caught by 2 guards as he does this. Garnier comes out of the clinic and tries to calm the man down. However, this man seems to panic at the idea of staying and brings attention to the fact that Garnier instead hurts and experiments on the patients. Although Garnier is kind at first, his kindness runs out quite quickly as he asks the guards to break the patient's legs as he threatens to run away from the hospital. Garnier then returns inside and the patient gets taken away after the spectacle ends. Killing Garnier is quite easy. You just make it inside and either approach him quietly or fail miserably as I did and end up having an all-out brawl with all guards around. I kill Garnier and he brings attention to the fact that he did believe he was helping these patients, his guards being proof that it worked since they used to not be of healthy mind, but due to his medicine, herbs and extracts, they were functional again. This harbors doubts in Altair's mind as we return to the Acre Bureau. As we discuss this event with the Creed's representative, he quickly dismisses Altair's concerns and states that it's not Altair's place to ask questions, but to take action. We rest and return to Masyaf to meet with Al-Mualim once more. We get promoted again, and now we have access to throwing knives and the ability to tackle enemies. We now get to visit the last playable location in the game. At this point, the traveling between the cities becomes a bit boring. This is due to the fact that nothing really happens or looks different in this in-between place called the Kingdom. All you can really do is collect flags as the collectibles and climb to the viewpoints and unlock more of the map in this area. Otherwise, it's actually pretty bare bones and doesn't innovate much, at least at this point in the game. We arrive in Jerusalem, and you can tell by the way they use the color correction and ambient lighting that this is a holy site. Damascus seemed yellowish brown and dusty, Acre was grayish blue and depressing. Jerusalem has this tint of almost white bright yellow that really captures the feeling of holiness, if that makes sense. Now, guess what we have to do to get into the city. If you guess saving a man from guards and then infiltrate by blending in with scholars, you'd be right. When we arrive at the bureau, the head of the Jerusalem branch is Malik. This is the same man that Altair left behind at the start of the game, whose brother also died due to his reckless actions. As expected, the interaction is sour and Malik has clearly not forgotten or forgiven Altair's transgressions, but they move on to actually focusing on the mission, which is to kill a man by the name of Talal. Talal is a slaver who takes men and women against their will and enslaves and sells them to whoever wishes to buy them. He is located in a barbican in the rich district. This is where he dies, supposedly. Once we arrive, Talal remains in the shadows as he himself traps us in a room hoping to convince us not to kill him, saying that we do not know enough and that his assassinations would not be justified. As he lets us through to the next room, he has us surrounded by several of his guards, which is a change. Rather sneaking on him to kill him, we're to fight our way to him, which poses a little challenge. After we've defeated all of the guards, we're to chase Talal. This is an opportunity the game presents us to use the tackle ability we've just recently learned. It's a welcome change. I was happy that at this point introduced a bit of variety since many other aspects of the game had become either too predictable or repetitive. Don't get me wrong, I was enjoying the game, but 2007 was a long time ago and games have come a long way since then. Like all of our other victims, he gets a bit philosophical and weirdly calm as we succeed in our final strike to kill him. He mentions that he's no slaver, that the people he had captured were people who needed help, the most unfortunate in Jerusalem, let's say, unfit to be slaves and incapable of even the most menial tasks. He mentions that he no longer believes in anything after death and that the people he had saved had abandoned their beliefs for longer, if not as long, as he had. We arrive at the Bureau once more to report the mission had been successful. Malik is not happy. Not only he knows Talal is dead, but the whole city accusing Altair of not heeding or caring to improve on his past mistakes, such as not being subtle. After the dialogue is over, we get to go back to being Desmond. It seems like there was a malfunction with the Animus. We take a rest and go back in the next day. It seems like the Animus was repaired and we will now be able to relive Altair's memories for longer periods of time. When you return to Al-Mualim, he gives you essentially the same task, but now you get to experience Altair's memories for longer. We're to kill 3 targets, one in each city, in entire new districts. The targets are Abul Nuq in Damascus, William of Montferrat in Acre, in Majd Addin in Jerusalem. I apologize if I mispronounced anything, but please don't take offense. Whichever city we go to first is our choice. Also, we get a new skill which is to grab ledges as we fall and to grab break, essentially a counter to an enemy trying to grab us. I wanted to go to Damascus just for the sake of having a pattern, and as I approach the castle doors to leave, I actually get the option to fast travel, which is nice, and I had been hoping for. I had actually completely forgotten about the fact that you could fast travel in this game. As per the typical process, you get to the city and visit the local bureau. There, more target information gets revealed to us, in this case Abul Nuq, who is the richest man in all of Damascus, and a merchant. What is his crime? Well, simple, it's greed. As we seek the information on the man, we find out he's holding a party at his palace, celebrating the people of this city and their contributions to the ruler's needs, in this case, the war against the other factions. But in truth, he had been taking this money for his own gain and the gain of the Templar Order, furthering their own motivations and purpose with that money. While trying to sneak into his party, you realize how heavily guarded this place is. Well, kinda. I only had to climb a building and jump onto a wooden beam in order to get into the palace and avoid any guards. But moving on. When we get to the courtyard where the party is being held, it's full of people, belly dancers, everything. It's a very lavish and luxurious party in which Abul saved no expense. He comes out onto this balcony to welcome everyone onto the party and starts ranting and praising their contributions, also surprising everyone by turning the water fountain into a wine fountain, and people indulge. Soon after that, the speech turns a bit sour, on how people judge him based on his looks, his feats, and how the very same people who he was praising actually secretly hate him. Then, even more unexpectedly, everyone who drank the wine dies by poison. Abul orders his guards to not let anyone escape, and to kill them all. Meanwhile, all hell breaks loose. We take advantage of this to reach the balcony and chase after Abul. Once we kill him, the speech is the general same speech, how he can see doubts in our eyes, how we're more similar than we think, but more curiously that we may already know some of the other people involved in the Templar Order he's trying to hunt down. Soon after, he dies. We report to the Bureau and return to Al-Mualim once more. He commends us in our success and starts discussing how killing each of these men cleanses the cities of corruption, as they're only as corrupt as their leaders. Altair raises concerns over how confident the men seem, even in death, of their success, almost as if inevitable. Al-Mualim appreciates the curiosity but simultaneously asks us for faith in him without answering those very same questions, which Altair finds frustrating. Regardless, we move on. We get awarded a new rank, the ability to dodge, regaining balance while free running, and also more weapon damage. In Acre, we're to murder William of Montferrat. He's to act as King Regent while King Richard is off to war. Most people found this to be a strange choice, as King Richard and William's son, Conrad, are known for not getting along, only being civil in public appearances. The presumption is that William is regent to make sure Conrad behaves, since it would be easy to get William killed. However, William plans the same. As we find out information on William and how to kill him, the most important piece of information is that he is to be visited by Richard that same day, meaning that he will be distracted and focused on solely that. We make our way to the castle that William can be found in. As we approach this castle, King Richard and William exit as Richard is to depart for war. They are openly disagreeing with one another on William's decision for killing 3,000 Saracen hostages, while Richard wanted to keep them for bargaining purposes. William believed that the Saracens would not have maintained their end of the bargain. King Richard ends that discussion, deeming it to be a waste of time, and William returns inside with a foul mood. We infiltrate the castle by climbing through the outside, killing some archers who stand on guard duty. William can be found in one of the corners of the castle. He's known for disciplining his own army when he's in a foul mood. He threatens there to train twice as much and consume less food and drink. He brings forward 2 soldiers who had previously been neglecting their duties. He has them killed to set an example for the rest of the men. We make it down and kill him once everyone is gone. As he is dying, Altair says that he knew that William was planning to have Richard killed in order to give the city of Acre to Conrad, his son. William denies this claim. He did plan to kill King Richard, but not to give the city to either his son or even himself, but to give it to its people. But then Altair confronts him on the fact that he stole food from its citizens, which he responds as saying that he did not. He was merely stockpiling the food in the event it would be needed to ration it properly, like a war as an example. William then dies and we report to Al-Mualim. At this stage, Altair is fed up with the contradictions, the omissions, and seemingly the lies. He confronts the leader on the riddles given and the lack of open discussion. Begrudgingly, Al-Mualim comes out and reveals that the men Altair has been killing are Templars, all part of one order, all of them having a small role which in the grand scheme of things would aid the Templar order and take the rule of the lands we've been in to themselves. Al-Mualim does lecture Altair on the lack of faith and that he merely wanted him to find these things out on his own by seeking the answers through his role and not through asking his superior, allowing him to piece it all together by himself. We are then promoted and we can now carry more throwing knives where previously we only had 5. For the last part of this memory sequence, we're to kill Majd Addin. Like William, he's acting as a regent of Jerusalem while Salah ad-Din is off at war. The difference is that Majd Addin was not chosen to be regent. He had every previous regent killed in order to get this position of power. Contrary to the others, he seems to be obvious about his taste for killing and just overall malice to the point the general population is aware of it. But that's his tactic. He wants the people of Jerusalem to fear him, because fear is power. One of the investigations we conduct informs us that Majd Addin is going to be at an execution that same day where 4 individuals are getting killed. We report back to the Bureau about this. Malik accepts the information we have gathered, but there is another detail. One of the men getting executed is part of our creed, so we're to kill Majd Addin before he gets the chance to kill our brother. At the site the execution is taking place, there is a crowd gathered to see, well, for lack of a better word, the spectacle. Majd Addin comes out and starts giving a speech on the crimes committed by the 4 people lined up before us. 2 people in the crowd are outraged at how open and disgustingly comfortable Majd Addin has become with making an event out of cruelty in the guise of maintaining order in the city. Both of the men approach Majd Addin in order to kill him, but the guards murder them before they get the chance. He proceeds to continue his speech using the excuse of the assassination attempt as an example for how quick corruption spreads within the people of a city left unchecked, apparently justifying his methods of, quote-unquote, justice. As soon as the speech ends, the guards get alerted to my presence, like, immediately. I didn't even have a chance to blend in with the crowd or approach quietly. I fight what looks like 20 guards and finally am able to kill Majd Addin. Contrary to all of the others before him, he's open about the fact that he enjoys determining the fate of another man. He likes killing. But most of all, he likes that people fear him. It makes him feel like a god. His words, not mine. The only reason as to why he was affiliated with the Templars is because he saw an opportunity to claim the power for himself, and that's honestly the only reason he did what he did. After he dies, we escape the guards and report back to the Bureau. Then we get pulled out of the Animus. It seems like something has gone wrong, but this time, not with the Animus. Lucy mentions that the modern-day assassins are coming to rescue us, regardless of our departure. Warren is visually annoyed, but honestly, he's annoyed all the time, so not much changes. Lucy finally reveals to Desmond that the Templars also still exist. They are the owners of the company Abstergo that have had us kidnapped this whole time. The rivalry that began 1,000 years ago continues to this day, albeit looking very different. Although there is a lot of conspiracy theories in modern-day society in this game, Lucy also says that it's a calculated move by the Templars in order to discredit anyone who might believe this tin-foiled conspiracy theory. We go back to our room for the night, and the following day we get back into the Animus. At this point, Altair is speaking with Al-Mualim again, and he explains what Altair can't understand. All of the men we have killed so far sought to overthrow the current leadership of each city so that it would fall under Templar rule fairly quickly and easy. He elaborates that they can't fulfill their plans because they depend on one important detail. They are missing the Piece of Eden, which is in Al-Mualim's possession. Although Altair does not initially understand why this is important, the explanation Al-Mualim gives is eye-opening. The Piece of Eden, what used to cast out Adam and Eve. It was used to separate the Red Sea and helped a carpenter turn water into wine. With the Peace of Eden, the Templars meant to have complete control of the citizens of these cities, perhaps the world, so they can conquer everything and accomplish peace. Obviously, we're not letting them. Al-Mualim gives us 2 more targets, one in Damascus and another in Acre. We get a new ability, defense break, and then we make tracks. For our 7th kill, we go back into Damascus. Here our target is Jubayr al-Hakim. He's the chief scholar of Damascus. Although we don't know why, he's burning books and knowledge ages old. We suspect only that it may be to keep the people ignorant. After investigating, we find out where he's located. He can be found in the courtyard at the headquarters of where the scholars are based. Once we reach the building, we can see clearly that he's burning more and more books, while having a discussion with a scholar that does not approve of these actions. The scholar urges Jubayr to stop this. These books contain valuable knowledge that can be used to learn and evolve society, ease the troubles of existence, and generally aid in civilization's progression. But Jubayr is having none of it. At some point, he started to behold these books and knowledge altogether as the enemy, as something that taints the individual who reads it. He claims that the authors of these texts had their own motivations, their own reasons to corrupt the readers with these books. This conversation takes a turn, and Jubayr throws his fellow scholar into the live fire in the center of the courtyard. Soon after, he orders all scholars present to go into the city, find any books and texts held by the citizens, collect them, and bring them back to be burned. This particular assassination changes things a little bit. We get several different targets to go after, but since all scholars look exactly the same, only one of these is Jubayr. Basically, we're playing hide and seek until we find our intended target, and well, complete the mission. Once we find Jubayr, he runs and we have another pursuit section. Easily enough, we catch up to him and assassinate him. As he lays in Altair's arms, he asks why we did this to him. Altair explains that men must be free to learn, make their choices, be educated, be taught right from wrong. It should be knowledge that frees a man, not force. Jubayr is stubborn and does not agree. He still believes that knowledge and learning is the reason men get stuck in their ways, and this causes divide between them, using crusaders as an example. But he promptly accepts his death, and right after that, he dies. Once again, we return to Masyaf to report to Al-Mualim. Not much is learned from this particular dialogue apart from the fact that Al-Mualim recognizes that Altair has changed for the better. Now we must kill the last Templar remaining. For our 8th kill, we're to assassinate Sibrand. He's the Grand Master of the Knights Teutonic, a member of the Levantine Templars. He holds authority over the Port and Acres Middle District, and he can also be found there. As we're debriefed by our brother over at the Bureau, he apologizes for the way he has perceived us in the past. At this point, we start seeing a change in the relationship between the brothers in our creed. They are starting to see a new Altair, one that has let go of pride and arrogance in placing duty as a higher purpose. This interaction ends and we move on to investigate Sibrand. The investigation leads us to understand he is to be located at the port of Acre. This is where he spends the majority of his time and what he is responsible for in the city. We go there only to find him grilling a scholar under the suspicion that he wanted to have Sibrand killed. Essentially, the paranoia of having all of the other Templars killed around him has led him to suspect anyone or anything that might resemble an assassin, even if it's just the fact that they wear white cloaks. He lashes out and ends up killing the man on the spot. He retreats to his ship, and that's where the killing is supposed to take place. As I approach the ship, unfortunately, he spots me and runs fucking fast. I can't blame him, he's about to die. What really stood out to me in this section, though, is how clunky the movement can be at times. If a space was too narrow, I'd end up going into a wall, and it would break the entire flow of my run. But moving on, he ends up getting to a guard tower, and I have to fight an entire entourage of enemies until I get to kill him. As we try to comfort him, saying he will be with his god soon, he reveals that, due to what the treasure has revealed to him, he doesn't believe in anything coming next. He believes this life is all that we had. We proceed to ask him of his purpose in the plot. He explains that he possessed control of the port in order to block the entry of any possible reinforcements once the Templars had the possession of the Holy Land, which in his eyes was freeing the Holy Land. He dies soon after. We leave the Animus. This time we overhear Warren speaking with a superior at Abstergo. They want results, and they want them fast. Once Warren leaves, Lucy reveals that we need to stop Abstergo. I don't know how, as she doesn't provide any possible way in how to do this, but we start getting a sense that she doesn't love this. Our little convo ends and we get to sleep once more, and we go back into the Animus the next day, after a lengthy rant from Warren. For this next part, I'm going to summarize it as, in all honesty, it felt a little bit pointless. We go back to Jerusalem as Robert the Sablé is supposed to be attending a funeral of Majd Addin. We do the usual investigation and find out when and where it's taking place and crash the party. As the funeral is underway, we end up getting noticed by Robert, and as the priest's monologue is going on, he announces that the killer of Majd Addin is present, obviously us, and that justice will be done. We get attacked by a whole group of crusaders, which I died to a couple of times, but ended up succeeding in the end. Once we kill Robert the Sablé, we take off his helm and realize that in fact it's a woman pretending to be him. She explains that this was part of Robert's plan. While we were to believe he was at the funeral, he went to meet Saladin in order to bring the two armies together and attack the Assassin's Creed, since we had done so much damage to both the Crusaders and the Saracens. We let the woman go since she's not our target, but we must rush to Arsuf while the battle between King Richard and Saladin is taking place. There we'll find Robert since he is Richard's lieutenant. We once again ride through the kingdom territory and make it to Arsuf. I wasn't a fan of this section. It was drawn out by battle after battle, meanwhile blocking the path ahead with the same bluish wall used before separating the different districts of each city. Once we finally get to Robert and King Richard, although King Richard initially believes we're there to kill him, we explain that we're actually there to kill Robert and reveal Robert's plans to betray the king in order to take control of the Holy Land for the Order. Robert steps in and explains that this is all lies, but King Richard does not know who to believe, so he says he's going to leave it up to God. Whoever wins a battle to death is the truthful one. The fight with Robert kinda doesn't make sense. I thought it was going to be a fight one-on-one between Altair and Robert, but when it starts, the fight is actually between us and some crusaders, and only after killing that group of crusaders does Robert join the fight. You'd think King Richard would want to save his men for the battle he was currently having with Saladin. But anyways, we kill Robert and he drops some bombs on us. We were a puppet in the middle of all of this. The treasure was not found by 9 men, but by 10. The 10th being Al-Mualim. The difference is that Al-Mualim did not want to share this power with the remaining 9, so he used us to get what he wanted. Complete control of the Holy Land and the people within it. By killing all 9 of the Brotherhood enemies, we made ourselves the last remaining target of Al-Mualim. Once this is over, we leave the Animus again. The Assassin's Creed Desmond used to be a part of are here to get him back. We can hear shooting while Warren is communicating with security over a telecom. The assassins fail, then Warren takes his chance to reveal that there are no more remaining assassins to come and save Desmond. For the past year or so, they had been raiding all known locations of assassins and killing them. Desmond is the last assassin. Warren leaves and we have a chat with Lucy. Although there's no evidence that Desmond's parents are alive, Abstergo did not find them anywhere, so she believes they could still be fine. She then proceeds to ask Desmond to have faith while raising her hand to her chest, revealing that she's missing a finger. If you don't know, this is a key giveaway that someone is a part of the Brotherhood. We go back to bed and enter the Animus for the last time the next day. Now we're back in Masyaf. Altair has the most cryptic conversation with a local, something about the assassins walking the path of the light, and how there's only what the master shows them. We can clearly see that something is fishy and rush all the way up to the castle, but we get interrupted by a group of mind-controlled assassins. We fight a couple of groups of assassins until Malik comes and rescues us with his own group of brothers, who somehow are still sane. Discuss the strategy with Malik and the group. They're to create a diversion so that all the assassins who are under Al-Mualim's control follow them, allowing us to slip into the fortress and slay Al-Mualim. We then proceed to the final section of the game. As we enter the fortress, we're greeted with an eerily still group of innocent people. We slip our way through and find the fortress completely empty, so we make our way through to the courtyard, and that's when Al-Mualim reveals himself as he uses the piece of Eden to hold our body completely still. He rants for a little bit, which doesn't really give us any context of anything, just really presenting him as a bad guy instead of a wise leader, really encapsulating the transition into the main antagonist. He uses the piece of Eden to invoke the 9 Templars we killed. Then we have a group tango and we kill them all. Fairly easily, since you only have to counter their attacks, and that's pretty much fatal to all of them. Al-Mualim makes his way down and uses the piece of Eden to multiply himself into 9 different copies. We fight for a bit. If you kill the wrong one, it simply disappears. Luckily for me, the second copy I attack is the real Al-Mualim. I quote-unquote kill him, but then a cutscene plays. This cutscene reveals a lot. Al-Mualim had the other Templars killed because he didn't want to share the power. He tried to control us, but our identity and the Creed tenets are so bound together, even the piece of Eden was unable to subdue Altair. Also, the piece of Eden has powers, but a lot of what it does is purely creating illusions. No one ever separated the Red Sea or turned water into wine. It was all illusions played out by the piece of Eden. In the end, Al-Mualim believes that men having free will would be their downfall, and only by taking it away, a true peace could be accomplished. We then begin our last stand against Al-Mualim. The last stand is quite simple. We have the usual combat encounter anytime we're attacked that erases a copy of Al-Mualim and he teleports somewhere else. When you do this, he uses the Piece of Eden to drain your health down to 1 point, and here you have to use the throwing knives to damage him from a distance. This restores your health. You do this a couple of times and we finally kill him. Altair and Al-Mualim have a little exchange of last words, but it's not significant as it's mostly accepting that the student has now become the master. The Piece of Eden falls to the other side of the courtyard and activates a sort of map revealing the location of other pieces like it. Malik joins us and then we leave the Animus for the last time. When we leave, Warren and his superior are discussing the fact that they have found the map and are to depart immediately to find the other pieces. We are to be killed, but Lucy convinces them not to kill us just yet. We might be necessary in case there are traps, or if we're needed to access the sites where the pieces are located. Lucy and Warren leave the room, and suddenly we have strange visions of markings all over the room. We can't make sense of it, but as we move into our bedroom, we take notice that there's a big mural on the wall. We look at it, and all of a sudden, the game is over. So, final words, thoughts, and reflections. Is Assassin's Creed as good as we remember? Well, not exactly. This title has me divided in two because on one end, the gameplay and overall game design feels very outdated 17 years later. But the plot, the voice acting, and overall narrative is miles better than we've recently received with Assassin's Creed Mirage. The climbing feels rough, slow, which is surprising to me because I have played Prince of Persia: Sands of Time before, and that one feels the complete opposite way and was developed by the same team 4 years before the release of Assassin's Creed 1. Yes, it wasn't an open world game and based on realism, but neither is Assassin's Creed. It's impossible to have a man climb a tower and jump 30 feet in the air and land completely safely in a haystack. This game is incredibly difficult to play stealthily. You can't necessarily sneak to your enemies or kill them from above like you can in more recent games. It wants you to hide in plain sight, which is a cool premise, but it didn't feel like it always worked. I feel like the AC team could have taken a few notes from Splinter Cell on that one. The game is also a victim of its own repetitiveness. The way you enter every major city is the same. The way you investigate each target is pretty much the same. You rinse and repeat this behavior for the majority of your playtime, and by the time the game starts to change it up, I was bored and uninterested. On a more positive note, the plot was actually really good. I forgot how serious Assassin's Creed began in comparison to the more recent titles, which, although still present some serious topics, I can't get over how goofy the voice acting is, at times just feeling like some random guy trying to impersonate a certain culture and ethnicity's accent. To my surprise, I actually liked the modern day segments. They didn't overstay their welcome, and the fact that they are quite short actually works to their advantage. In the later games, I typically don't like these sections. I just want to play the cool assassin bit of the game. I love the whole plot point of using what is free will. Is it damaging to society? Should we control the people in order to achieve absolute peace, or let them figure this out on their own, even if it takes millions of years, or even the possibility of never achieving it at all, since we seem so hell-bent on not overlooking each other's physical differences, beliefs, and religions. This is what I loved about it. On that note, if you stuck around to the end, thank you very much for watching. Subscribe if you want to see more of this, and let me know what you think in the comments. I'll see you guys next time.